Oh my. Whew. You know, we have training for this. It's not working right now, and that's okay. As I was getting ready this morning, I put on no eye makeup. I knew this was going to happen. So I welcome these tears because they're appropriate. Because I am sad to be giving my last message to y'all. And I'm touched. If you don't know this about me, I love rocks. I have several rocks on my altar. I have rock collections. When I first met my husband, we didn't have a lot of money. We loved to camp, and we traveled around Lake Superior, and we just camped on various beaches and national parks and state parks and picked agates and dolomite and looked for fun basalt and amygdaloidal basalt, and that's how we found our roots in this place. And I think of rocks and I think of ballast. I think of how ballast is required for ships to float and for planes to fly. And it's always so interesting to think about that weightiness that is literally required for movement of flight and floating. And I think of all the heaviness, the hard lessons, as well as the really deep bedrock lessons of my life as the ballast that keeps me from tipping over, and I think allows me to spread my wings once in a while. So thank you for this ballast. One of the things I wanted to talk to you today actually has to do with a limestone mountain, a rock in Texas, where a large clock is being built. Has anybody heard of the clock of the long now? All right, some people are aware of this. So literally, deep within this mountain in Texas, they are building a clock to last 10,000 years. Now, of all the things to put our time and resources and money to, why would you build a clock in a mountain that is supposed to last this long? And the builders of this clock say that it is to help us reestablish our relationship with time. That so often we are thinking of this instant gratification, my 24-hour news cycle, that time has literally changed in our lives, and we no longer are using myth, those fictions that are real, to help orient us in this world. So this clock is both mechanical and mythical. They estimate that if every 25 years, if we think of a generation about 25 years, that the story of the clock of the long now will have to be told 400 times to get us to 10,000 years. The clock rings when a visitor winds it, but the clock can also hoard energy by the constriction and expansion that happens between day and night. So it is both reliant on humans and completely can operate devoid of us completely. It has a different sequence of chimes for every day for 10,000 years. Time is interesting, isn't it? I mean, I'm standing here now with you in this time and place, but I might be getting emails happening, I might be getting voicemails happening, and I'm gonna have to go and relive this time by listening to that email, by listening to that voice message. It's like the way that technology has compounded time requires us almost to be in virtual spaces in time while we're present in the moment as well. The theory of relativity, that we would age slower on the moon than here on Earth, that a clock on our ankle would go slower than one on our wrist. Whew. And here we thought time is linear, right? That's how we are often oriented to it. It begins and ends It's 1 minute, 1 second, and it is literally zapping us of life each second that goes by. But what about circular time? The time that is of the seasons. That every year there is a fall. That every year there is an August with that warm August light in the evenings that hits the birch trees and makes them glow. That happens again and again and again. The circles of the moon, the circles within circles, and even the spirals, touchstones. We come and we light the chalice each Sunday again and again and again, touching into eternal time, time that has no specific. It just happens again. We change, but it doesn't. The ritual stays the same. That's one of the invitations I hope that you receive on a Sunday morning when you come here and you listen to that prelude music and it shifts you from all the time. Oh, we have to be here. We have to go here. We're going to have to do this right after this. This is happening. And you can just be here now in timelessness. I've been thinking a lot about time. It seems like I've only had 2 years with you, but it feels like such a fullness of experience, and it feels like there's not a way to end it, that quote that Bucky shared at Joys and Concerns is just so resonant with how I've been feeling, that there is no beginning or end to this time we've had together. That's how it's been feeling. And so I wanted to share an idea of a life cycle in more of a circular way. You've probably seen the life cycle of the butterfly or the dragonfly, where it goes from the egg to the nymph to the adult, and the adult lays the eggs, and it's really nice. It's always in a circle. But often our lives and our time together, or going through, say, a kindergarten through 12th grade, is almost always thought of as linear. I received this teaching from a dear friend of mine. She asked me, Stacy, have you ever heard of I'm on my 4th hill. Do you know what I mean when I say that? And I said, well, I know the saying over the hill. Usually we give that to someone when they turn 40, and it's sort of this bad joke that, like, you're past your prime, and, there's like, your organs are deteriorating, and it's all downhill from here, and all those raunchy jokes that come with that. I said, is that what you mean? Are you like over the hill, but like you found another one? And she said, no, there's a lot of teachings, including the indigenous people of this region, the Anishinaabe, as well as many. It's throughout many different Eastern European teachings, that this idea that our lives have 4 hills. The first hill is infancy. And if you think about it on a circle with the directions, you think about it as a day, infancy is the rising sun. It is the time of perspective. It is that color of yellow. It is all of the possibility. It's often, especially in the Anishinaabe, it's often associated with the eagle. Eagle vision, far, far up to see all of that vastness to come. If we move around the day and move around the compass, that would give us the east, because that's where the sun rises, is infancy in the east. We would go to the south, where it's noon. And the south being the space where you get that full, bright sun of childhood. All of that energy, my goodness, can we hook them up to renewable energy sources? Wow, that veritas of energy, the growth of summer, that season, often associated with the field mouse. Little details, every little detail, seeing it, knowing it, and the color red. And part of that red is that's when we learn danger. That's when we learn what can burn us if we go too far, too fast, too much, and then we fall. To cycle around, if you think of the hills, as you're going through those hills, all of those experiences of moving from that transition of infancy to childhood, and then childhood into young adulthood and adulthood. And if we go around the compass and the clock, it's dusk. It's the season of autumn. It's the direction of the west. The Anishinaabe will often associate the black bear with this season in our lives. And that black bear that has feasted in the young adulthood. So as you're going up the hill, you feast, right? Maybe that's in college, you're feasting on knowledge. Maybe you're working, you're feasting on finding yourself and learning your boundaries and what makes you you. And you get sort of full by the top of the mountain, and that's when you begin to go into the den in autumn to have the cubs, of which then you just give and give and give in adulthood. And then we move to the season of the north, season of winter, the direction of the north. It's midnight, it's elderhood. And in that season, the fourth hill, my friend said, you know when it's time to go up the fourth hill because you can't give in the ways that you've given before. Now, this doesn't have an age. When we talk about elderhood, it isn't retirement necessarily. I mean, you look at someone like Horst, and Horst is still on that third hill. You know, he's still on 17 boards and 32 committees and, continuing on that hill of giving. But for everyone, it's a different time, it's different circumstances. It may be a choice. It may be a choice that was taken away from you because of health or finances or whatever it was, but you must enter into elderhood. And on the hill of elderhood is when you pause. As you're going up the hill, you can see all of the hills that you've walked already. You have all of the wisdom of those four directions, the four seasons, all of the circles within a circle that you have been a part of, and your unique inherent worth and dignity self have a lesson to share. And on that fourth hill, as you look back, you also can see the generations to come, not just those that are born, but those that are yet to be born. And it is your work at that time to share your story, share your gift, share your wisdom. And it is the work of everyone else on the three hills before that to take note, to stop whatever they are doing and listen. I kind of like that better than like that whole over the hill, the one hill thing. I've been thinking a lot about this and putting my own meaning into it. And sometimes when you look at those four hills, you can also look at little journeys in your life, whether that was maybe going through high school, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, or like now, when I need to find a way to say a good goodbye for now. I'm kind of on that fourth hill, reflecting back, thinking of all that we've experienced together, all that when I started with you all, and I didn't know much about you, and came in, and it was like we had just gone through this horrendous pandemic and isolation, and I don't know about you, but my heart was just open, and I just made such deep connections with people during that time, and that happened with you all. And I got to be part of this new model of ministry that hardly anyone is doing, where you have different voices coming in on a consistent basis. And we all get to share, not holding religion over people, not holding wisdom over you, but sharing it in dialogue, wondering if it can serve. We've moved from having almost more people online than in person to, I swear I did not orchestrate this today, but just as an example, we have much fewer people online than we do in person. And what an amazing shift that has been for each and every one of us to acknowledge and know where we are and what serves us best. I've seen your religious education program grow. Oh my goodness. When I started here, there was like there was always this like, well, we have one kid. We've got one. And he comes, we got one. Sometimes two, sometimes four. And, I know that the other Sunday I was here, I think there was 13. And what an amazing thing to see. During this time, I got ordained. Oh my goodness. And you were a part of that, giving me this gift for my ministry forever. The water and the peace doves. And we had some really great potlucks. Times of connection. And when I think back at where we've been, that might have been the time, but time and space are interesting because distance can also be measured by what we do together and who we are in that space. And when I look back, I think about all the ways that you are all have this value of self-sufficiency, that you all are the fellowship. I mean, I don't know of any fellowship that has more functioning at every single committee and every single level as this fellowship. It is truly this word congregational polity that describes the governance of a UU fellowship. You all are doing it better than anyone I know. I do know that this is a community that doesn't have a lot of resources as a bigger community. I know that in order to get a lot of medical and dental things, you got to go to Marquette. You got to be able to get in a car and take an entire day there and back. And I see this fellowship being the resources for one another, driving each other, caring for one another, not leaving people behind just because it's hard. I love how still there's conversations that happen where people wonder, what is UU? What are we worshiping? What's the point of Unitarian Universalism? And I love that that's a question that is still being asked in our small groups, in our worship services. And I think a lot about that. And for me, it doesn't have to do with a singular belief, but with the ability to be community with those of diverse beliefs. Unitarian Universalism calls that pluralism. Why does that matter? There's a great book called Healing Prayer. It's done by a Harvard professor who went and tried to really say, what are all these big, in Brazil, in Africa, what are these healing ceremonies and do they actually work? Because people say, I go, I'm hurt, I'm struggling, and they get healed. So what is happening? And she wanted to really separate it out and see what was happening. And one of her conclusions in that book is that when a large group of people get together and share in care for one another, in song, in prayer, that it literally expands the energy of love, and that has a healing force to it. I once had this dream. It was actually while I was doing my first internship and was not planning to go into parish ministry. And in this dream, I came across, I was interning in a fellowship. It was a lot darker, it was a lot different than this, but very similar actually. And in my dream, I could see there was people in the fellowship that radiated green. And when they reached out to each other, there was a green light, a green energy that went to the other. And when those two people that were radiating green came close together, they created this orb. And there was this one whole row, and it was all these people that were, they were just very open-hearted. And it was like glowing green. And I remember I was standing up in my dream and I was looking out and I said, this is my work. To care for the green and create it and support it. And I know that sounds like a little bit out there, but it has stayed with me forever. I was thinking about that as I was reading this great book. It's called Song of Ascents. And it too is looking at what is the point of being in this world? What is the spiritual and religious teachings? What are they asking us to do? And I'll just read this passage. I'll surmise that it's through this ecstasy of standing outside ourselves and in the self of another that we begin to know the indwelling of the one. When the boundaries merge and we become one, that is the green energy that I was seeing in my dream. This book is by Tom Hornstra. I can't recommend it enough. But that literally, we need one another to create that kind of healing in the world, to have that spirituality. It doesn't happen in isolation. I've gotten to experience that with you all. I think it's amazing that in this world that a fellowship like this exists, a fellowship that is free to believe what they believe, that comes together willingly to care for one another, and perhaps is on this verge of oneness. So I just want to conclude by blessing you all on this journey of being in this circle with you all has been an absolute honor and privilege. That I will be in the circle, within the circle, no matter what is to come. And we know that that circle has no beginning and has no ending.
Please rise as you're willing and able for our closing song.